I'm not sure who wrote all of that, but one thing is for sure, I wasn't involved in it. Alright, so Stevie McGinney's at my table, and we talked until the ending of pinball game didn't see. So I promise to be brief. I want to thank the whole thing for the Alumni Association. I want to congratulate you, Principal Stevens, for the work that you've done. It's tremendous. I want to thank all of you for being here with me today. I don't have my immediate family with me today, other than my brother and my nephew. I'll talk about that in a couple moments. I chose to have my valid family with me today. My husband and my children. I've broken into many things through the years, but today I want to have people here that really grew up with me and were at the valid table with me, but I'm honored that they could be. I'd like to begin by simply saying, Golden Mayer said, don't be humble, we're not that great, but I am humbled to be here today. This is probably one of the biggest honors that I get to have bestowed upon me, because it's a brag on the start. And I saw one of our judges yesterday with a shirt on that said, from the station, from Valley Station, out of Valley Station, was Mr. Dunn. And Mr. Dunn, are you here today? For your shirt. But I love that because there's something special about being from Valley Station. And there's something special about being from the South End. I used to tell people that those core values of just being kind and treating other people like you wanted to be treated, hard work, and having fun. We can have fun too. We know how short life is. We know how to really have fun. But there's just something special about being here. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my teachers and coaches that are here in the room today. And I don't know who wrote that, but I'm sure Pam Williams-Jones had something to do with it. I know she couldn't be here today, but she nominated me. So before I thank my teachers and coaches and my family and my high school friends, I want to thank Pam Williams-Jones because as I shared with the students yesterday, unfortunately there's research that supports that women aren't as good to other women as men are to other men. Do you believe that? And so to have one of my classmates take the time to nominate me and to have another classmate in Karen Richardson travel with me today means a lot because we need to support other women, and I like to consider myself a champion for other women. I want to thank Gary Wade and Fred Coach for being here today. I know that Alice Yates passed years ago. She was my little hockey basketball coach, and Marcia Brack taught me what it meant to be a lady and reminded me that no matter how ugly a game became, from beginning to end, we were ladies first, and I cherish having a mentor like her. Coach Wade and Coach Coach saw abilities in me that I didn't see in myself. And my father was not around much, honestly, throughout my high school years. And so people like Coach Collins, who reminded me yesterday, Coach Wade and Coach Copus, and Mr. McKenzie, who is at my table, stood in when my father really wasn't around. And so that's what that was all about, family, and those family times have taken me through my years. I would like to, in closing, thank the folks that are at my Valley High School table. Karen Richardson, star athlete, and a super human being that taught me at a very early age what integrity looked like. My brother, Kelly, and my nephew, Keegan. My brother, Kelly, and I were latchkey kids. My mother belonged to a local neighbor. She was a small business woman. She owned a hair salon, so we knew everything about everybody. She was everyone's personal psychiatrist. But she showed us strength and wisdom and grace. And he was in my corner always, and I was in his. But we taught each other what love looks like through the years now. So honored. And then Mr. Howie is with me. He's my math teacher, and I have to tell you, it really puts a grin on Mr. Howie. He called me just a couple of months ago, before I even heard about this and before I heard about it, just to say he was thinking about me. He remembered where I sat in his
anybody that does not know me, I'm Dr. Andrew Arnold, Dallas's son, class of '69 from Valley. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here, and I really do appreciate Mr. Stevenson and the committee that not only nominated but allowed him to be put into the Hall of Fame this year. I was here last year with Don Russell, and so I had an idea of what would be going on, and I think it's a great bunch of people with a good organization, and I see my granddaughter over there running around, so we'll try to make this real short. But anyway, I'm honored and thrilled to be here to accept this from my dad, and I think there were several people that played for him that would love to still hear a couple of words that he always said. One was, if it's worth doing right. Another was, we did not curse on the football field, and I can tell you that that's definitely an exception, not a rule, after my years at U of L. But one thing he would always say, if somebody slipped up and dropped a four-letter word, it'd be, "Son, you embarrass me." And another saying that he always had that almost anybody that played for him or everybody that played for him would know is that he'd say, "Son," after somebody make a real simple mistake, drop a pass or miss a block in practice, he said, "Son, they're going to have to take both of us to the hospital for me to get my shoe out of your tail." So anyway, it's really important to me to see him honored this way. One or two other short things is he and my uncle, my 92-year-old uncle, they were starting tackles on the Western football team, and my uncle was known as Little Dog, and my dad was Big Dog. So about the only other thing I'll say just about is I'm really proud of my dad's accomplishments. I'm proud of his athletic career. I'm proud of his military career. If anybody saw the movie the last few years, Hacksaw Ridge, it was based on the Battle of Okinawa. That's where he was wounded when he was in the military and then came back. I'm also proud of his coaching career, but most of all, I was proud to always say that he was my dad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yesterday we came and we spoke, got to spend time with the students, and indeed it was like coming home. To be in the parking lot where I learned to drive and to be right here in Valley Station, it was a joy, and it is such a privilege to be here. And I do want to thank the Alumni Association and to thank the Homecoming Committee. I want to thank Dr. Mormon. I am a second generation Valley High grad, and my mother is here, class of 43, Mom, and as is Lucian Mormon, his parents too. And so we have these deep roots in Valley Station and in Valley, and it means so much to us to be here. You can't say enough about what Valley does for you and your upbringing. As was said in the introduction, you get a lot of learning here at Valley, a lot of education. I was just kidding when I said that, a lot of learning. I know better. Grace Baker would not approve. But you learn a lot, and but it's the life skills, it's the relationships, it's the encouragement. It is an expectation that allows you to move forward in life. And yesterday we tried to talk to the students yesterday about that and what that meant. And for me, that is just something that will stay with me forever. And so again, I want to thank everybody for the encouragement that I received at Valley, and for this great honor that I received today. So thank you.
I got a little vertigo here, sorry. A little dizzy. That's usual. I got a chance to speak to the football team yesterday and got this little thing started. The name of my little speech was it happened on the way to the Hall of Fame. And several funny little things happened. First of all, though, you know the guy who's responsible for this whole thing? Joe Cantrell. Stand up, Joe. Please stand up and give him a hand here. His daddy was a good friend of mine. Coached me in basketball. I wasn't very good in basketball. I was a lifeguard. He was the head of the swimming pool out there. So I knew his daddy very well. And he's done a really good job of getting us all the information we needed to participate in this thing. You know, getting into the Hall of Fame is kind of maybe like a little religious experience. And my wife didn't know it, but I was always kind of religious growing up. And who's laughing? And I can still remember after football practice every day, the high school, Valley used to have a school bus that ran in Dixie Highway, and the guy would call out the streets where you got off Greenwood Road, Lower Hunter's Trace or whatever. And then it was your responsibility to get yourself from Dixie Highway to your house, and I lived right there on Lower Hunter's Trace. And I can still remember it would be getting dark after football practice, and it would be getting colder. And I used to have to get from Dixie Highway to my house on Lower Hunter's Trace, about 1.5 miles back there. And you won't believe this, but I used to stop at every telephone pole and do push-ups. Then I'd run to the next telephone pole, and I'd rest for a minute, and then I'd walk to the next telephone pole. But anyhow, I got from Dixie Highway 1.5 miles back to Lower Hunter's Trace. And I can always remember, as I walked back to Lower Hunter's Trace, you could see the old rubber town factories back there, and they were bubbling up all that, the old appearance of fire and brimstone. And I used to say little prayers, Lord, help me. I just need your help to get this scholarship, because Frank and Willetta, my mother and father, they can't pay for me to go to college. And I'm the oldest of 5. If they paid for me, nobody else could go. So please, Lord, help me get this scholarship. And every night it was the same thing, and you'd see all that fire and brimstone and the clouds and everything. And this one night, I got back there. I don't know if you all remember, but in the old days, there used to be an S-turn in Lower Hunter's Trace. I lived right there in that S-turn. And I came around the corner, getting ready to go into my house. And over in the field there was some kind of a mystical experience. Some kind of a ghostly image was coming up out of the ground. And there were some bushes there, and the wind was blowing, and it was cold. And I thought, surely the Lord has answered my prayer. But I was afraid to walk over there and see what that was coming up out of the ground. So I said a couple little prayers, and I said, Lord, help me. And I walked over there, and there it was. The light was coming up out of the ground. And I walked over, and unbeknownst to me, they had started digging a basement next to our house, about 100 yards over from our house, and the light was coming up out of the ground. The guy left his extension cord plugged in, and the light bulb was bringing the image up out of the ground. I said, maybe not yet, Lord, not yet, Lord. But anyhow, you never know how you're going to get a football scholarship. I can still remember, there's a sign right over there that says Mike Glenning's Seafood Restaurant. You all know where that is, down on Cane Run Road. Mike Glenning had 5 daughters, and his youngest daughter was named Mary Ann Lenning, and she and I used to have dates occasionally. We were getting ready to go out to the movies, and I pulled up at her house. There was a red station wagon parked there, one of those old Ford red station wagons with the paneling on the side. I'll never forget, I looked on the back. There was a license plate on the back that said State of Indiana. So I went up and knocked on the door, and this tough-looking dude, I never saw him before, came and answered the front door, and he said, yes. This guy's name was Bernie Crimmins. Bernie Crimmins was a football player at St. X, and then he went to Notre Dame, and Bernie Crimmins was the only guy in the history of Notre Dame football that ever made All-American at 2 different positions. He was an All-American guard, and he was an All-American fullback. And probably you don't remember, but back in those days, football players wore headgears, of course, but they didn't have any face masks. And Bernie Crimmins had this big old scar on his nose where he had been sticking his face in there and blocking people and tackling people. He said, can I help you? I said, I got a date with Mary Ann. Can I come in? He said, come in. And he went over and sat down. And Bernie and I started talking. And I learned that Bernie Crimmins was the head football coach at Indiana University. And he had that red car out in front with the Indiana license plate on it. And he said, where you go to school? He didn't even know me. I said, I go to Valley, sir. He said, well, tell me a little bit about Valley's football team. He said, do you play football? I said, yes, sir, I do. He said, what position do you play? I said, I'm a quarterback. He said, do you know anything about the split T offense? I said, yes, sir, I do. Paulie Miller was my coach at Flagey before I came here, and Paulie learned from Bernie Bierman and Don Farrow and the head coach at Oklahoma, Bud Wilkinson. All those guys were running the split T, and they were all there at Iowa pre-flight school where Paulie was an assistant coach. Paulie learned all that stuff and brought it back to Flagey and taught it to us. I was alternating there with Paul Horning. You remember him, the old Green Bay Packer and Notre Dame guy. By the way, Moose Krause, the athletic director at Notre Dame, said of Paul Horning, he is the best prospect I've ever seen here in my 25 years of being the athletic director. He's the best prospect in baseball, basketball, football, or track. He's the best student athlete who's ever come here. So I felt very fortunate to have alternated with him at Flagey. But anyhow, Paulie brought that stuff back, and I learned some of that from him. Now here I am in Mike Lenning's living room, waiting for his 5th daughter to come downstairs. Now I'm sitting there talking to the head coach at Indiana University, who I had no idea was going to be there. And he said, well, can you tell me a little bit? He's trying to learn, Bernie Crimmins is trying to learn something about the split T offense. And he said, can you tell me something about what you learned from Paulie? I said, yes, sir. When you take the ball, you got to step up and try to deliver the ball beyond the line of scrimmage so you make yardage. Even before the guys got the ball, you gained yardage. And he and I sat there and talked for at least 30 or 40 minutes about the split T offense. And he said, well, that's very interesting. He said, would you be interested in coming to Indiana University on a football scholarship? I didn't have any football scholarship. I said, yes, sir, I sure would. He said, well, I'm going to arrange for a official visit for you to come and visit our campus. And so that worked out, and I went and visited, and I ended up getting my football scholarship. So you never know how fate is going to, with its twist, is going to affect you. But it wasn't all good, because when I got there, besides me, Bernie Crimmins came to my house and talked to Frank and Willetta, my mother and father, and said, your son can be our starting quarterback, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And he convinced them, good, son, go to Indiana University. But when I got there, there were 8 other freshman quarterbacks. And you remember back in those days, in college, you had to play offense and defense. You couldn't just play. All I played at Valley High School was offense. And then when our offensive team would come off, somebody would go in and play defense for me. I never played any defense. So me, in competing with those other 8 or 9 quarterbacks, I never had any chance to be the starting safety man and quarterback. All those guys had played defense. And so after a year of seeing that I wasn't going to be the guy, I came back here, and I still had my scholarship at U of L. I came back and played at U of L, which was a lot of fun, and I had a chance to play with John Unitas. I was his backup quarterback. So I had a chance in my career to compete with 2 Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Paul Hornung and John Unitas, and that was certainly fun and certainly a good time. And you know, along the way, as you travel around, you accumulate some things. And I was really, really fortunate. First of all, I accumulated my wife, Peggy. And then secondly, I accumulated my 5 sons. All 5 sons were major college quarterbacks. They all were scholarshiped, and that saved me a lot of tuition. So if I could please have them stand up one by one, and if you would please hold your applause until the end, I would certainly appreciate that. My oldest son, John, 2-year-old, stand up please, John. Not waving to your girlfriends anymore. 2-year all-state quarterback in the state of Michigan, scholarship quarterback to Michigan State. Second son, Stephen. Please remain standing, John. Stephen, scholarship quarterback to Indiana University under Lee Corso, all-state quarterback in Pennsylvania at Central Catholic High School in Pittsburgh. Third son, Daniel, back there holding the camera. Daniel was the leading passer in America. He got a scholarship to Fresno State, broke his wrist, had to stay out for a year, and then finished at New Mexico Highlands College, where he led the nation in passing. Fourth son quarterback Thomas played at Ole Miss, was all-state in Louisiana, played at Jesuit High School in New Orleans. Outstanding quarterback. Fifth son Andrew played at Marshall, got a scholarship to Marshall, then transferred to Hofstra, which was a good deal for me. He was on scholarship, but it cost like $2,000, $2,500 to go to Marshall. It cost $25,000 to go to Hofstra. So I was applauding all the way. So wait a minute. And then the last time I got myself in trouble, we were in a kind of a deal like this, and I introduced my secretary instead of my wife. So I never heard the end of that. So Big Mama, the lady that gave me the 5 sons, is Peggy, and give them a big hand, please. You know, it was always a privilege and a pleasure if somebody said, Well, where are you from, son? I'd say I'm from Valley High School, down there on Dixie Highway. Some of you know this, but you don't all know it. Back in the old days, Valley High School had the largest school district in the state of Kentucky. And it ran all the way from Algonquin Parkway down Dixie Highway to the Salt River, all the way down to West Point. They ran all the way from the Ohio River to New Cut Road. And there were so many kids here, they had to have double sessions. You remember that? They had to have double sessions so they could get them all educated. But anyhow, I was always proud to be from here. You guys, you probably wouldn't do this, but if we did it together, it wouldn't be so embarrassing. We could all say, "Go Vikings." Now, wait a minute. I'm going to go say 1, 2, 3, and then we're all going to say, "Go Vikings." 1, 2, 3, go Vikings!
I'm going to, first of all, I want to thank anyone and everyone associated with the circle. I'm humbled to be among all these patriots and the folks who've done tremendous things for our country and for other communities. I want to say that up front. Our speakers haven't talked very long. Coach Denny, you say, but I think you're going to for about 2 seconds. Coach Collin, you were here for about 35 seconds. I'm going to break the board on talk for 5 minutes. And I'm going to talk about 3 things. First, I want to thank some folks. Second, I'm going to tell you what it was like in Great Valley when I was here from 1968 to 1970. And then I want to talk about the future. I want to thank all the folks who are here this afternoon, particularly the people who are involved in such a committee. Mr. Cantrell, he has held my hand every other Inductees here for the last 6 months. There's lots of stuff we can do, how much money we can pay for the bill, what we need to say, how to keep our comments short. So I want to thank him. I want to thank all the members of that committee for what you do. This is Reverend Valley High School, a tremendous institution here in the state of Kentucky, in Jefferson County, and Louisville. Tremendous institution. I want to thank the folks who are here from my family. First, I want to thank my wife, Connie. She's here from Washington, D.C. She's gracious with her presence today. And my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Burke Thomas, they're here. They're almost dead. 90 years old. So we're thrilled to be here. And I got my brother Larry, my brother Ryan, and his wife Denise, who just drove in from Columbus, Ohio. Just got here. So that's a good thing to drive all the way from Columbus to be here in the little Valley Station. My brother Keith is here. And I have some other friends. We have Mr. William Courtney, who's spearheading an effort in God's local to refurbish the boys' schools. I also have Mr. Charles Stout, he's the head of the Montfort Marine Association here in Louisville, and a lot of volunteer work. And another special friend is Mr. and Mrs. Jonathan Hamilton. John served on that Louisville Central basketball team in 1969 won the state championship. When they came out to Valley Station, they ran us off the court. If you remember that, actually, I was still playing basketball. So I'm going to thank all you folks. I hear what you said. Okay. You're not paid to say that. Second thing is, coming to school to Great Valley. I got here in 1968. I was a junior, and as the chief grade officer mentioned, senior chief said, I said in TV history, and I was surrounded, I was in an envelope with girls. They didn't know how to spell football, so I was virtually invisible. All they talked about were boyfriends. Dickie this, Joey that. I got to know girlfriends long before I got to know them. Just because that's all they talked about. I'm not sure what they learned in TV history, but that was an introduction to Valley. Steve Limbaugh was one of the main players. Randy Barnett, he's here. So during that period of time, Valley High School won a lot of football games. 1967, 1969, we beat just about everything. And I think that's what made Valley High School so special. We just did a lot of things right. The other thing I want about Valley in that period of time, there was an undercurrent of patriotism, right? Coach Arnold, World War II vet, served in Okinawa. Mr. Cantrell was a World War II veteran from in the Navy. So a lot of our instructors, a lot of our teachers were veterans. So Valley was pretty much no nonsense place. You know, you just didn't do a lot of crazy things back in those days. Because those veterans were stacked up and shoot back in place very, very good. And I think we started our ROTC program when I was here. So it was a wonderful time. Also, 1968, the reason I came here was because my father gone over to Vietnam for a second tour. So it changed. So a lot of veterans children here at Valley High School. And it was a wonderful place. So by the time I graduated here, and also later, there wasn't anything that we could do that was really more challenging than I had now. I have said, having played Navy football for 4 years, nothing was tougher in that program than Coach Spencer's 2 years in time. Nothing. So it's pretty easy. What I'd like to do is talk about the future of the high schools. As far as I came here in March and spoke. I asked the students if I could come in and speak at Valley. I wouldn't speak this business because each time we come back for the reunions, we wouldn't come back to school. You know, so I said, hey, I want to see the school. So after 50 years, I came and spoke to school, spoke to some students. Let me tell you something from a military guy, right? Valley High School is spot as a hospital. It's very, very clean, it's very orderly, it's very disciplined. The teachers are out doing all sorts of things. I think that's a function of leadership. When I teach military history, they say that Napoleon said, there are no bad regiments, just bad colonels, right? So, my good friend Steve Limbaugh, he's got a bunch of these t-shirts. What I did was, when I taught about ROTC, I put this t-shirt on, all right? I want you to take a look at it. Straight out of the station. Because we talk to those students we try to think of things that relate to them, service to our country, service to the community, good education. This may be that step. What I like to do is I like to present this t-shirt to Ms. Stevens. Wonderful job you have done. I think the future is bright. I encourage all of you to come visit the school. Check in with the principal first. But it's just a wonderful place, a wonderful institution, and we'll continue to get better. So, Mr. Stevens, on behalf of all of us alumni, we want to continue to see God do well. Please accept this t-shirt. And listen, I knew we could have back here about and have some fun. I'm not sure how long I talk, but hopefully it's about 5 or 6 minutes. I just want to thank all of you for coming this morning. It's a wonderful time to be here at Valley Station here at Valley School. Every one of you wish you're going to live up, especially the students that you have in the futures. We'll count. Thank you very much.
This is such an honor, and I feel very humbled by able to be included with this very distinguished group of people. Valley High School has always meant so much to me, and I can tell you that we had some of the best administrators ever, starting with Mr. J.C. Cantrell, who was a friend to all the students, and he helped us form our core values as we grew up. And our teachers like Francis Moss and Reason Newton and George Hicks, helped us build our knowledge as we went on to our careers. And I'm very thankful for that. I want to thank the committee for selecting me with this great group of people for a school that means so much to me. And Principal Stevenson, you've done a marvelous job in bringing our school back to prominence like it was when we were in school. And Joe, I think you've done an incredible job. Tireless work on the Hall of Fame has been fabulous, with the beginning, first inductee, your father. And I'm very proud to be a part of that group. When I left Valley High School to go to University of Kentucky, I went as a music major. I was going to play French horn in a symphony orchestra, and I couldn't wait to do it. Had a horn teacher at UK. I was ready to go. And then in my second year, I was assigned a work-study program in the film department, and that kind of changed everything. I came in that first day, and I was asked by the documentary film professors, do you know anything about sports? I said, yes, I love sports, played sports. Well, we're going to show you how to use a camera, and you're going to film the football and basketball teams. So 2 weeks later, I was at the Indiana University filming the first Kentucky football game, and I did the coaching films for the football team. The guy that I worked with immediately and handed that film off to was Wally English, who was an assistant coach at UK under Charlie Bradshaw. And so we had a good time doing that. And then in basketball season, I got to work with Adolph Rupp, who was one of the most interesting characters I've ever met. And I think he might have been the funniest guy I've ever known in my life. If you've ever sat next to him after a basketball game and listened to his speech, he kept you in stitches. But it inspired me, and I got to work with the great All-Americans at Kentucky when we were there. Pat Riley, Louis Dampier, Dan Issel, Mike Pratt, Mike Casey, great teams, and I was able to film so many games that I was asked in 1969 by the NCAA to film the Final Four. It was the senior year for Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then I proceeded to shoot 18 straight Final Fours. But when I left Kentucky to start my career, I was asked to shoot NFL football games. 1970, I was 23 years old, and for the last 47 years, I have been out there on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays shooting football, and it became the passion of my life. Yesterday, I was able to speak to students, and I had more questions about football and their favorite players and favorite teams and the differences between shooting film, which NFL Films did for all but the last 3 years of my career, till we switched to digital cameras, and I could able to explain to them the differences and the great changes that have happened. But Principal Stevenson asked me yesterday if I was shooting this year and where was I going, and I said, well, appropriately enough, my first game is the Vikings. So I will be shooting the Monday Night Football game on the 11th, and then going on to do the 2 games in London in the first week 3 and week 4. But I feel very blessed to have come to this school and and have the time here, because I think we lived in a time where Valley Station was a safe place to live. We made great friends. I have 9 of my fellow classmates here, of class of 65, 2 of which have been inducted already into the Hall of Fame, and I'm sure there's more to come. But even better than that, I've helped put together our reunions. And I will say to the students here, do not miss reunions. Those of you who still have reunions, go to your reunions. Reconnect with your classmates, because they were the people that you grew up and formed your best friendships with. And at our 50th reunion, I reconnected with Pat Sipes. And we were married last November. And she has been my inspiration. So don't pass up your reunions. You never know when you're going to find your soulmate. So again, thank you for this honor, and it's a pleasure, and it's a great honor to have been a part of Valley High School. Thank you.
And my brother is covering the U of L Purdue game, so he could not be here with us. But he did want me to express his disappointment that he was not able to attend the ceremony this morning. He had an opportunity to meet several of the inductees last night and is very honored to be included in this group of esteemed individuals. So just on behalf of my brother, I want to thank the committee for the induction. And on behalf of my family, thank you very much for this honor.
As y'all see, I can't stand up long enough to make a speech, so I'm going to cut mine pretty short. I'm very honored to have been put in the Hall of Fame here at Valley, and I loved all the years I put in here. I would like to do it again, but I want to thank all the people that had anything to do with it, put me in here, and all the people that has worked so hard to create this Hall of Fame atmosphere we have here now. And that's just about all I got. Thank you.
I am indeed honored to be here. You think I need a mic? Let me know if you can't hear. I feel a little bit like an imposter since I did not graduate from this high school. I'm honored to have been nominated by some of my students who are here today. And I want to say that although I did not go to high school here, I consider it one of my luckiest days, the day I was assigned to teach here and I met Mr. J.C. Cantrell. I was young, enthusiastic, and confident. And he took me aside before I ever met a student and said to me, "Our music program has fallen on hard times, and some of our students are out of control. I would love to have good music, but we have to have discipline, and if you have to choose, you have to have discipline." So that was my challenge. Fortunately, I had 100% of support from the administration. And if you've ever taught school, you know that's the answer to your problems. All 4 of the administrators here, Mr. Cantrell, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Pickett, and Mr. Adams, supported me 100%. And then the students believed in what I said. I told them if we worked hard, we could be the best. And they bought into that. And so I accept this honor, but I really accept it in the name of the hundreds of students that came through this program while I was lucky enough to be here and enabled me to have a successful program at Valley High School. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It sure is a real pleasure to be a part of so many great inductees into this great Hall of Fame. I've got one person that I'd like to say hi to, and Millie, would you stand up for just a second? This is the lady that saw me all the way. She has taken care of all the paperwork and everything else, and calls and letters, and sponsored me to have me in this Hall of Fame. Thank you so much. And my beautiful wife of 57 years, Helen, stand up for a minute, darling. Let them see exactly what kind of catch I made. There you go. I have always loved Valley High School. We moved from Alabama to Louisville, Kentucky in 44, 46, downtown Jefferson Street, 833, out into Shively when I was like 10 years old. And when they built Butler, I was asking, just pleaded with, why don't you go to this brand new school? I said, oh no, I'm staying right where I'm at. I've been happy. One of the happiest days of my life was to know that I graduated from this school. Well, now I have realized another beautiful, happy day. And I thank all of you for accepting me and letting me be a part of Valley High School and what it means and what it stands for. We live in the greatest country in this world, and I've been a product of one of the best high schools in this country. And I'm really proud of it. I didn't go to college. I didn't have that opportunity nor the money. But I had a little talent thanks to my father. He sent me to a little old music school thing for a while that got my feet on the ground. And then later on, one of our own great stars, Pee Wee King, who has the Golden West Cowboys. He hired me in 1962. I was just turning 21. And he showed me the world. First airplane ride I'd ever had, first bus ride, first time I worked the Grand Ole Opry. And I'm sure proud that I had a chance to have him as a second father and as my college, my mentor, and showing me the ropes and what to do in country music. And country music has really been good to me. I'm so thankful. I'm not going to take up much more time. I'm going to take this right here and run before somebody takes it back. Thank you so much for letting me be a part of everything, fellas. God bless you.